All right. The invitation, Mike, is to close your eyes. And together we're going to take 3 deep 4x4 breaths. So 4 seconds in, hold for 4, 4 seconds out, hold for 4. Let's begin. In. Hold it. Out. Hold. In. Hold it. Out. Hold it. Last one in. Exhale. With your eyes closed, I have a few words for you. You are the source of your truth, Mike Wagner. Everything you need is within you. You are the leader of your family, Mike Wagner. Your presence and intention will guide the way. You are a gift to the world, Mike Wagner. All it ever wants is your fullest expression. There is nothing left to do except be here now. Mike Wagner, welcome to this past versus present FRD spotlight. You may open your eyes.
Thank you, brother. That was awesome, my man.
Yeah,
So great.
it felt fun. It felt like a nice way to introduce you and be with you before we jump into this. So our intention for this fun spotlight recording is to give people awareness on Mike Wagner past versus present. So Mike Wagner before FRD and Mike Wagner today. And I've got a few questions that we've agreed that we're going to do some quicker responses to, while also informing whoever listens to this that each of these questions you and I could likely spend hours on, as we have in the past. So I'm just creating that awareness in that this will actually be work for us to do this quickly, and we'll see what emerges without feeling hyper rushed. Sound good?
Sounds good, my man.
Sweet. So the first question I have, Mike, is going back to past Mike, before Front Row Dads, how did you respond to this question? What do you do?
Pre-front row dads, that was a quick professional answer that would include, I would have told you that we help people learn how to invest in self-storage. Our tagline is, we use ordinary garages to create extraordinary lives. And that would have been as expansive of an answer as you would have gotten out of me back then, I think.
Right. Yep. I can relate. So shifting today, what do you do, Mike Wagner?
Oh, dude, it's so funny that you asked that because I have no freaking idea. At least looking through the lens that I just answered, like professionally, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up.
Yep.
That said, what I do is I do my best to model for my wife and kids what it means to be present and engaged and active and alive and walk through this world in a way that we can be proud of, but and that also feels good to us. And on a day in and day out basis, what I'm spending most of my time doing these days is figuring out how to be more and more present with myself so that I can be more and more present with the people that I love.
Yes. I love that. And see, now I'm already catching myself. I'm refraining from a long reflection, which is my normal way of being with you, but I will reflect back that you are one of the few people in my world that I believe deeply prioritizes themselves so that you can show up for others. And I've seen that. I've experienced it. I've been with you. And so that's a very real answer. Thank you. Number two, going back to pre-FRD Mike, what did you value most and prioritize?
Mm. I think my highest priority and the thing I valued most was progress,
Mm,
growth, achievement, um, impressing people, right? All of these things that the world would uh, have us use to measure our quote unquote success.
yep. Okay. Awesome. Again, I can relate. Shifting back to today, now what do you value and most prioritize?
Peace,
Mm,
calm, um, and I want to maybe add the caveat to those is, you know, I don't as much as I enjoy sitting, you know, cross-legged in a beautiful mountaintop experience, perfectly serene and zen and all of that. That's not really what I mean when I say peace and calm. What I'm referring to is inside myself, my nervous system, um, my my highest value and priority is to reclaim control of that system and be able to be at peace even amidst the storm or the chaos that
mhm.
maybe your 11-year-old throwing a meltdown for what's going on 2.5 hours now, or I'm just using an example.
That's not real or anything today. That's not at all. That's not happening in real time. Yeah. No, it totally is, and that's all right. But being able to cultivate um, uh, a semblance of peace through that as again, going back to what I said before, as a way, not only to model it for them, but that's the ancillary benefit. Um, Doing it for myself has become really like the only way to try and live. Mm,
I wish I were better at it. I wish I were perfect at it. That's not how it works. So I wrestle with it, um, and that's part of the journey. You know.
indeed. Yep. Yeah, I so this is so important that because that word is very real and valuable in my world, peace. And I have a similar relationship where I realized a while ago when that word came into focus that I want it, but not all the time because there's a risk of leaving the human experience if it's always peace. And so I like and I align with what you're saying that peace is great, but it's also this knowing that you can come back to peace when we get dysregulated. To me, that's the Jedi move that I'm still trying to master in a humble way, knowing like I still get rocked and
Mhm.
being with that rockiness, that volatility. That's the game. It's not like, oh no, I'm always at peace. This won't get me. It's like, no, I'm human. This will happen,
Right.
but can I get back to peace? So thank you for that. All right, question number 3. How did Mike used to define his role as a father? Again, pre-FRD. What would you have
Mm.
said?
Uh, I think I probably would have said that, you know, some of the obvious things like to provide for them, to protect them, you know, and when I say provide, I mean financially, of course, but also, you know, emotionally and physically provide for their needs. Um, and there would have also been an element of like to raise them, quote unquote, right.
Mm,
There was an element of my own egoic involvement that I wasn't really aware of at the time that had me um, envisioning what it meant um, to quote unquote be good or right or you know, whatever other subjective truth I'm going to pretend is an objective
mm,
absolute, and kind of I would do my best to imprint that on them.
mm. Yep. Totally. So you probably know where this is going. Fast forward to today. How do you define your role today as a father?
Yeah, some of it's still the same, right? I still believe that it is my job to provide for them,
Mhm.
not just financially and physically and emotionally, also spiritually. It's probably an area of huge growth over the last several years that um, coincided with my involvement with Front Row Dads. Um, and I think the bigger shift though is that my role as a dad is one that centers around teaching them through example rather than lecture, how to regulate themselves and how to integrate the experiences that they have into their existence so that they can become who God created them to be, rather than me trying to make them who I want them to be, offering them the support they need so that they can grow into who they're supposed to be, not, my made up opinion of what they're supposed to be.
Yep. That lands. Yep. Yeah. Is there a particular example or moment where you're like, "Oh, yes, this was an opportunity for me to let go and give them that space to what would say is to walk their path." Does anything come to mind immediately?
Yeah, quick short story is kind of the different ways in which I used to relate to my son and I relate to him now, particularly on a mountain, right? He and I do a lot of hiking. We're climbing the 46 high peaks in New York. And,
Mhm.
when we started this, he wanted to do it and I wanted him to do it as well. And I wanted to do it with him. I had a strong egoic attachment to getting to the top, and pushing him and I think there's value in perseverance and grit and not giving up when it's hard, but not if it's coerced. And so, this past summer, we had a kind of before and after experience, the after side of it, where we were climbing up a mountain and it was gonna be an easier mountain than we've done in the past, and he was quite confident and borderline cocky about it, and then some things didn't go well in the first, I don't know, 15 minutes of a 6 or 8-hour day,
Yep.
and we started to spiral, and I was able to zoom out and just, um, shift away from trying to end his meltdown and instead just creating a container within which he could express what needed to be expressed. And, we had a great talk. We talked it through. And ultimately I was in a position to give him the choice and say, "Hey, buddy, listen, there's no pressure for us to do this. This mountain will be here next week, next year. Like, we
Yep.
don't have to do it. If it's not fun, like, or good, like, let's just not do it." Um, the cool part is that over the course of, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes, we worked through that, and then we summited the mountain 3 hours later and had an awesome, awesome day, um, which makes for a good story today, but more than that was like a defining moment in where I think instead of me just, um, wanting to make this shift, like it was a uh, poignant example where he got to experience the shift that I had been trying to make.
Yes. Dude, that's so real. I knew a little bit about that story because we're good friends and you shared a bit of it earlier. But what's so real for me in that, Mike, is some of the words you used, creating the container so that they can be with what they really want to experience without our projections, our wants. Because the egos is really great at being like, "Yo, I wanna do this now with you." And I've noticed I have this, like, fun thought, musing theory, whatever, that kids have this knowing of when we want something for them. And to your point, they know when the container is safe and when it's not. At least
Mhm.
my son does. My son Everest is 9, and it's how I show up, and oftentimes without words, and he just sees like, "Oh, dad's here. He's holding this space, and I can be me." That's when he's expressed and when he does the magical things that he can do. Whereas other times when I love the word used, coerced, he's like, "No, I know." And he doesn't even know how to explain it sometimes, but he knows. He's like, "Oh shit,
Right.
dad wants this," you know? So Dude, props to you for that because it's hard. That's the hard part is really holding that container. All right, beautiful. Few more questions. Shifting into FRD today, you are a very important part of the community, a veteran member, 6 years, showing up in all kinds of beautiful ways. So a few of these questions are I invite you to kind of share as it relates to things you've learned as a front row dad. And the first one is, as a veteran member, what do you think most fathers want?
Hmm. I don't know that I can answer what most fathers want, but I can, in retrospect, share with you what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And that was to feel good enough, to feel like I stacked up to the job, like I had what it takes to be trusted with this crazy responsibility of freaking parenting, right? Which is nuts. Um, and and when it comes to what I wanted from front row dads, it was I wanted to feel supported in my quest toward feeling confident and capable and adequate to raise my kids in a truly healthy way rather than in a way that mimicked maybe how I was raised.
Yes. I love that. This is a perfect segue into the other second question I have here is that where do you think some of your deepest learning has occurred as a father, being on this beautiful journey with front row dads?
Mm.
And maybe you've spoken to some of it, so don't you could double down, you could tell another short story, but to really clarify, I think there's beauty in some of the deepest learning. We're learning all the time, but like, if any of those moments come where like, oh, that was a shift, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a great question. I think I'd have to point to, I mean, there are a dozen different kind of um, inflection points that I experienced as a direct result of my involvement and active engagement in front row dads. And what they all have in common is that they were experiential, right? Like it's funny because they were all things that intellectually I knew in advance. Like no one had to tell me.
Mhm.
A, it wasn't that I learned the fact. It was within the container that JV and you build so well. Um, I was able to connect deeply with men around things that were important to me and us, and then kind of live and experience the truth of the fact that I had already wrapped my head around and really moved that what I would describe as intellectual understanding into like a full body knowing.
Mm.
And again, I could point to a dozen different examples, but they're either at the VIB retreats, the adventure series with you, like it just, and then of course you got to bring that home. I don't want to be prescriptive. I'll talk to myself. Part of what I had to do to really integrate and internalize those inflection points and have them become more than just a peak experience, but something that became real for me going forward was to come home and integrate and do the work necessary to make it happen.
Mm. That's so big. So thank you for both that powerful and simple answer of experiential, because again, that lands with me. I align with that deeply. And also emphasizing that you have to bring it home. You have to do the work. It's easy to hear it, understand it, and even do it with your dudes. Like I've become really comfortable doing men's work, but then shifting back into this beautiful, chaotic, sometimes peaceful home environment, right? And doing the work there, that's a different level of courage. At least I've experienced it that way. And so, oh man, I think that's such a huge insight. And that is a great transition into the final question, which is actually your opportunity to offer one invitation that you'd share with other fathers on their journey. anything you want? What's one invitation?
Mm.
And give yourself permission to be clear to give them an invitation. Forget about the projections, the prescriptions. What would you invite them into?
My invitation would be to ask them to consider how their life might shift if instead of trying to kill off the parts of themselves that they don't like or don't stack up to where they want them to be, instead of trying to kill those parts off, how might their life shift if they were to instead love those parts?
That's a Mike Wagner invitation. And we're not going to jam on this further because that's the work. That's part of what you get to share with them on the journey. So what a beautiful place to wrap this short, awesome interview. Thank you, Mike, for creating space for this.
Thank you, brother.
All right.